Have you ever sung "Ba Ba Black Sheep"? Of course you have. It's one of the first nursery rhymes many of us learn. Ba ba, black sheep, have you any wool? Yes sir, 3 bags full. It seems so simple, so innocent, a polite little sheep sharing its wool. But what if I told you this seemingly sweet children's rhyme hides a dark and controversial history? What if the song isn't about a generous sheep at all, but about centuries of economic hardship and social injustice? Today, we're going to peel back the layers of this familiar tune and uncover the surprising, and frankly, a little bit shocking, true story behind Ba Ba Black Sheep. Get ready, because you'll never hear this rhyme the same way again. First, let's look at the lyrics we all know. One for the master, and one for the dame, and one for the little boy who lives down the lane. On the surface, it's a neat little distribution. The master and the dame get their share, and there's even a bag left over for a local child. It paints a picture of a fair and giving community. But history tells a very different story. The most widely accepted theory links this rhyme to the Great Custom, a heavy wool tax imposed in England way back in 1275 by King Edward I. Now, in the Middle Ages, wool was basically gold. England's entire economy revolved around it. It was the country's biggest export, and they called it the jewel in the realm. So, naturally, the king wanted a piece of that action. This new tax was hefty. For every sack of wool a farmer produced, a third of its value had to be given to the king. So, let's re-examine those lyrics through a medieval lens. 3 bags full. The first bag, one for the master. That's not a polite term for the sheep's owner. That's the king, the master of the realm, taking his mandated tax. What about the second bag? One for the dame. This dame wasn't just some random lady. This referred to the church. In medieval England, the church was an incredibly powerful institution, second only to the crown. It owned vast amounts of land and also levied its own tax, called a tithe, which was typically 1/10 of a person's produce. So, the second bag of wool went straight to the church. Now for the final bag, one for the little boy who lives down the lane. This is where the story gets really sad. The little boy represents the shepherd, the poor farmer who did all the work. After giving 1/3 to the king and another portion to the church, what was left for him and his family? Just 1 bag. He raised the sheep, sheared the wool, and was left with only a fraction of his own product to try and survive on. So, when the rhyme asks, "Ba ba, black sheep, have you any wool?" and the sheep replies, yes sir, 3 bags full," it's not a happy declaration. It's a statement of account. It's the farmer explaining where all his hard work has gone. It's a song of protest, a quiet complaint against a system that felt deeply unfair. The shepherd couldn't openly criticize the king or the church. That would be treason or heresy, so they hid their frustrations in a simple children's rhyme. But why a black sheep? In the 13th century, black wool was less desirable than white wool. White wool could be dyed any color, making it much more versatile and valuable for the textile market. Black wool, on the other hand, couldn't be dyed. It was often seen as lower quality. So the black sheep itself could be a symbol of the downtrodden farmer overlooked. Less valued, yet still bearing the full burden of taxation. It adds another layer of melancholy to the whole thing. The farmer is complaining, but he's doing it from the perspective of the least valuable part of his flock. Over time, as the medieval tax system faded into history, the original meaning of the rhyme was forgotten. People continued to sing it, passing it down through generations, but its sharp political edge was lost. It just became a cute song about a talking sheep. But wait, the story doesn't end there. In more recent times, another, even more controversial interpretation has emerged. Some have suggested that Baba Black Sheep has racist undertones. In the 1980s, this theory gained some traction, leading some schools and nurseries in the UK to alter the lyrics or even ban the rhyme altogether. The argument goes like this. The term black sheep is often used to describe an outcast or a disreputable member of a family. The color black, in this context, is associated with negativity. So, the rhyme is seen by some as reinforcing a negative stereotype, linking the color black with something undesirable. This interpretation connects the rhyme to the history of the slave trade and the exploitation of black people, while the black sheep in the rhyme is almost certainly a literal sheep with black wool. And the historical evidence points strongly towards the medieval tax protest. The power of language is undeniable. Words and symbols can take on new meanings over time. The phrase, black sheep of the family, is a perfect example of how the color black has been used negatively in English idioms. Because of this controversy, you might have heard some alternative versions. Instead of black sheep, some versions say rainbow sheep or happy sheep, instead of one for the master. You might hear one for the farmer. These changes were made with good intentions, to ensure that the rhyme was inclusive and didn't cause any offense. However, many historians and linguists have pushed back, arguing that changing the lyrics erases the song's true history as a piece of social protest. They argue that the rhyme isn't racist, but is actually about class struggle and economic injustice. It's a fascinating debate, isn't it? On one hand, you have the historical context of a medieval tax complaint. On the other, you have a modern-day interpretation focused on racial sensitivity. And both sides raise valid points about how we interpret these old rhymes. So, what's the verdict? The overwhelming historical evidence supports the medieval tax protest theory. The timing, the language, and the social conditions of 13th century England all line up perfectly. The rhyme was a clever and subtle way for the common person to voice their grievances without facing severe punishment. It's a testament to the creativity of people living under oppressive systems. The more modern interpretation about race is more of a revaluation based on contemporary social awareness, while the original intent was almost certainly not about race. It's a reminder that the meanings of words and symbols can evolve. What was once a protest about wool taxes can be heard differently by a modern audience attuned to different social issues. So, the next time you hear "Baba Black Sheep," remember the poor medieval shepherd. Remember his frustration as he watched his hard-earned wool being carted off to the king and the church, leaving him with just one bag to feed his family. It's not just a song about a farm animal. It's a historical document, a whispered rebellion, and a powerful story of social injustice hidden in plain sight. It's a perfect example of how the simplest things can have the most complex and fascinating histories. What other nursery rhymes do you think are hiding a secret history? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to dive into another one. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed uncovering this piece of hidden history, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next video. See you next time.